So let's continue working on this app. And of course, an important next step will be to make this button work so that we then actually visit a different page on the screen where we get a question which we then can answer. But before we do that, I want to tweak this button a bit more, the styling or the look of this button to be precise. And I also want to tweak this image a little bit. Now for the image, I want to make it slightly transparent. For the button, I want to add an icon inside of it so that it's not just some text here, but instead some text combined with an icon. And we'll start with that button where I want to add an icon. Because that of course could be a very common requirement in the apps you want to build, and thankfully it is quite simple and straightforward to do. If you want to turn this outlined button here into an outlined button with an icon, you can use an alternative constructor function that's offered by Flutter on this widget. For this you can add a dot to access this extra constructor function, and here it's the icon constructor function. And this does what the name implies, it adds an icon to the button. Now if you use that constructor function, you can still use onPressed and you can still use style, but child is no longer called child, but instead here it's the label argument that should be used to define the widget that then defines the non-icon content of this button. But of course you also do want to add an icon, and that's done with the icon argument that can now be set when using this icon constructor function. And this icon argument here wants a widget. And therefore technically you could of course provide any kind of widget here, for example also another text widget. But typically you of course indeed want to, well, create an icon here, and for that Flutter gives you the icon widget, which, and that's really important, can also be used outside of this icon button. Icon is a regular widget provided by Flutter, and you can use it anywhere else where widgets can be used. For example, here inside of this column widget, if you wanted to add a standalone icon. If it should be a clickable icon though, you want to use something like outlined button icon, and then here you set the icon argument to such an icon widget. Now this icon widget constructor function then needs some icon data. It actually takes a bunch of named parameters that can be set, but it has one positional argument that should be set, and that's the icon data, which is simply a pointer, you could say, at the concrete icon that should be displayed on the screen. And for this, Flutter gives you the utility icons class, which, when used with a dot here, offers you a bunch of predefined icons. And if you cycle through these icons, you should actually also get a preview of these icons, which makes it very easy to pick just the right one for your use case. And here I want to use the arrow right alt icon here. But of course you can use any icon you want, but this icons class here makes it very easy to use all these built-in predefined icons that ship with Flutter. And with that we just have to add const here, or we should add const here to be precise. And if you now save everything, you should have this button with this icon here now.